Hi, I'm Danny,
I'm Sam.
and this is
Business in a Brew. We'll be poring over business stories,
and talking about things that interest us in the world of business.
so we'd like you to just take a few minutes out, listen.
Yeah, we'd love it if you join our conversation with us.
Hi, hello. What have you got today?
Today I'm going to talk about FedEx. So obviously I've got a background working in logistics, so logistics just fascinates me as a general thing. Like when I worked there, I literally did things like counting pallets. I don't know why, it's so interesting. I have such a creative side of my brain, but I also have that analytical, mathematical side. And there's something about logistics and the organisation of lorries and transportation around the country, around the world. Just absolutely find it fascinating. But obviously...
But you did that, yeah?
I did that for quite a while. But the way it is today and the way it was when I worked in it, it's come on a long way since even then, because that was 20 years ago. I'm going back to the beginning of FedEx in the 70s. So that was a long time ago. You know, it's when air travel first became a thing.
Yeah.
People were used to delivery being a slow and long service, like off of Jane Austen, when you send a letter and it gets there 3 weeks later, and then the person turns up behind it because they said they were coming to visit. That sort of slow and long. So FedEx was started by Fred Smith. Started FedEx, and he came up with the idea when he was at Yale, and he was so excited by this idea, he wrote a paper on it just for fun. Like a white paper on it.
Great.
Yeah. But no one really...
Was that his dissertation?
I don't think it was. I think it was literally just did it for fun because he believed in it so much. But he did cheat a bit because his background, his family history was in the transport industry. So his family's always worked in the transport industry. So he knew it inside out. It wasn't like he just woke up one day with a genius idea to revolutionise transport.
So turning it into funsies was not too much of a...
Too much of a stretch, no. Still not the way I'd spent my time, but whatever, it floated his boat. But he had an idea that there was a niche for overnight delivery services, very specifically for things like medical, transplant organs, that kind of thing, and that niche wasn't being met. And he believed that the burgeoning, that's a word, isn't it, burgeoning? Yes. The things in the air industry was the way to do that, because it connected the country and it connected the world in a really speedy way that wasn't possible before. I mean, obviously rail was an improvement on road, but air was an improvement yet again. And no one really got the idea. He had it in 1971. People were just so used to a system where your packages arrived slowly that they just didn't see the point. So when he first started the company, it was almost bankrupt pretty quickly. And he started with £95 million of investment. But you bear in mind, it's not like starting a digital marketing agency for the sake of argument, which doesn't require a lot of initial outlay. Well, you need hardware, you need the planes, you need the software. If you've got some kind of system behind it, you need the people, you need the unloading at either end, you need the forklift trucks at either end. There are so many assets that you'd need to set up a logistics company that 95 mil wouldn't have actually gone that far. And
I pictured it starting literally with a little chipmunk plane and you're delivering.
No, he went big, and I think it's because he knew the industry. If it was you or I going, let's start from scratch, let's start with one plane, and we happen to deliver, overnight from Nottingham to London. Yeah, all right, maybe. But you're talking someone who already knew the transport industry, so they very much took what they already knew and scaled at that level. Instead of starting small, they started where they already knew.
Amazing.
So he started...
So they would be immediately effective.
Yes, in theory,
was it started then with one hub? Because it was a hub.
Multiple.
It's done a hub.
It's multiple hubs. What I find fascinating, it really, really struggled, even with that 95 mil of initial investment. So he had 5k left. He took it, gambled it all at blackjack, and won 27,000, which saved the company.
Oh my God.
I know. I mean, that is ballsy. I mean, to be fair, the man came from a logistics background, so I've got a funny feeling he probably had money anyway.
Yeah, possibly.
It was all a little bit
card count.
Well, possibly. let's not accuse FedEx of
No. Private
FedEx.
do that,
Yeah, and I just think that's fascinating. So there was it to us. It's not rocket science. It makes perfect sense. That delivery network that exists, that level of next doorness for something that's over in America or that is the United States, America, Australia, or whatever, to us, that's normal now. But at that time, it's hard to believe that people went, yes, that's a fabulous idea. They're like, why? Yeah. 3 weeks, that's fine, isn't it?
But how long did it take him to burn through that entire 95 million to then have only 5,000 left that he turned into 27,000?
Obviously, I forgot to write it down, but I think it was something like a couple of years. It wasn't very long. Because you buy all the assets, but then no one's buying your service.
But the take-up...
And they just sat there.
So the take-up was slower than he hoped for?
Yes, because essentially, at the end of the day in logistics, one of the rules is fresh air costs money. So you stuff a lorry full of pallets up to the ceiling. You want stackable pallets. That's why double-decker lorries exist, because you're not shipping more and more fresh air.
Yeah.
If you've got a suite of planes, a suite, a flight, a collection, a group, a flock of planes, you do not want them sat there doing nothing, because they cost money even sat on your runway. That pilot you've got on standby costs money. And when that one transplant organ turns up and that's what you're sending on that one plane, the cost per unit for that is absolutely ridiculous. It's not just the fuel, it's the man loading, it's the man unloading it, it's the bicycle courier at the other end.
And then the fuel.
Yeah, so just there weren't enough people who recognised the benefit of the service, and it just couldn't cope at first.
Gosh.
So between not enough shipments and the high costs of everything, it was a competitive industry. But it was a competitive industry in terms of there were plenty of other people doing delivery, not at his speed, but no one saw the value of the speed.
So was USP around then? UPS rather?
Yeah.
Right, UPS predated.
Yeah, well, round about the same time. They're all round about the same time.
Right.
Because that's when, as you move from cars into the rail industry, that's when things started to take off. International deliveries were only really when the boats were crossing the oceans. So it was in the 1980s that he started the global expansion, and he did a lot of strategic acquisitions. So he'd buy hubs, he'd buy into places that already existed. So it was, I think he was more strategic as it grew, rather than at the beginning where he just kind of threw everything at it. It was like, well, this is going to work. Of course it is. He was a lot more strategic as it grew, and obviously,
it's almost like I'll build it and they will come.
Yes. Whereas as he carried on, he was more like, as they're coming, I'm just going to build it a bit more. So it did build over time, and now it's still a brand that exists now. It's absolutely massive, and it's been done in the right way. But it's interesting that it might not have existed because people just didn't see the point. Whereas today, I can't imagine sending a letter to Spain that took 2 weeks to get there. I've got clients who work in e-com. I can't imagine them having an American... I mean, you wouldn't have had American clients because you wouldn't have bothered shipping it for 6 weeks to go on the slow boat to America. So I just think it's really interesting that people didn't recognise the benefit of a service. And I don't know, but then I suppose it's like cars. I've got my horse. Why do I need a car?
Have you got a horse?
No, I haven't got a horse. And I can't ride anyway. But if I did, why would I need a car? But that is how people treated cars when they first came out. Why do I need one of those? I've got a horse.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So I suppose sometimes
I'm just wondering as well that without FedEx, there wouldn't have been Tom Hanks in that in the film. With the
football. I don't know why I mind a head, because it is a head, but it's a football. I think they probably would have used another delivery company
that had crashed, because it's based on a true story as well.
But anyway, it's really not important.
No, I know. No, don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
No, I do not want to go down that rabbit hole. I really, really don't. But he's continuously invested. He gets it. He's continually invested in local and international hubs, and in tech. He's massive at the forefront of investing in new technologies to improve, to streamline, to run things in a better, more cost-effective, more efficient way.
Wow.
And I just think that's impressive. Yes, I think he did have a bit of a head start because he already knew the industry.
Yeah.
But he obviously had an idea. He discovered it, Eureka'd it, whatever.
But he had an idea because he knew the industry and he knew there was a gap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas all those people in his family had already
customers hadn't yet found that gap either.
No, and that's the funny thing about niching down.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can see it, but you need to spend all of your time educating your niche,
people,
which is really, really hard.
Right.
When I started my own business 10 years ago, people didn't know what a VA was. So I spent my whole time saying I'm a VA and then having to explain it. It's like when I had my maiden name, and I used to have to say my maiden name and spell it straight away afterwards. It became a habit. I think sometimes you can see an opportunity, but you have to make sure your customer knows what they don't know. Which gives you a challenge, which is always fun. Yeah. But it can be.
I can imagine a challenge for them as well, or for him initially, would have been, how does he get hold of the target audience? They're not.
Well, we didn't have social media then,
the end
did we?
user. Yeah. Who is the end user in that case?
Well, in theory, it's everyone.
Let's say for organs, it's not a surgeon, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's the hospital administrator, or it's the parents who want to put pressure on the hospital system. Yeah, it would have been. I think he was a bit naive in going, well, obviously everyone knows we need this. Let's shove it out in the world and see what comes of it. But by the same token, yes, I think you're right. How do you get that out to the right person? How do you understand the person that influences or makes the decision in those processes at all points? Because it wasn't aimed at first at you or I trying to send a parcel to our aunt and uncle. Yeah. It was aimed at medical things that had a sensitivity.
And everything else fell in behind it as well.
Absolutely.
But I love that. It's the invention, and then it's the iteration.
Yeah. But then good.
That's just continued to be tweaked.
Yes, but good invention is iteration, isn't it? You can't have, James Dyson said, you can't have success without failure.
Yeah.
Which I think is true. You have to try things.
One of my clients said just a few weeks ago that, actually on another podcast, that they failed their way to success.
I like it.
Which actually most businesses do. They just don't admit to doing that. All businesses are about little tiny failures that need to be improved upon.
But yeah, there are little things that happen that point the way to a different direction or a different thing. And we were talking about this before, how sometimes you can be on path A, but actually it generates tangents that open up massive opportunities for you, ideas or career paths or just different audiences perhaps, or subsidiary products.
Or frying chickens.
Or frying chickens that you weren't aware of, you wouldn't have even considered. But A somehow leads to B, leads to C, and you're in a different place. And sometimes you just got to be grateful for that, follow that path and see where it leads. All right, it won't always work, but you could also run FedEx, or FedEx as I keep calling it.
I prefer FedEx.
I like FedEx as well. So yeah, that is my story of FedEx.
Yeah, that is great. And I'm sure they've had a set of controversies along the way, but I'll bet they've repaired them every stage.
I bet they've delivered on time.
Oh, God.
Sorry, I apologise.
I think that's it.
I think that's it, yeah. Thanks so much for listening and being a part of today's episode.
If you like what you've heard, or if you feel there's something missing, or you want to ask any questions, please get in contact.
And if you love listening to us as much as we love talking to you, subscribe, download, leave us a review. All the love helps.
Thank you.